Okay, so we've come along a little way now. I've just put some wires in here which are all loose, but they're because it's easier to solder them in before I do anything else. This is just the four-way relay. These are the two relays that are going to be used to power the whole thing. This is the 4.8 volt. This is obviously the fuse. This little bank here is the 11.4, or is it 11.2? I can't remember. Positive. This is the negative. The negatives are joined. This is the negative for the 4.8 and that's the 4.8. So from now on, everything I'm just going to wire to these points. But let me show you this working. I only need one to make it work. And this is the switch. You can hear them clicking on and off. And that's turning on the main power, turning on these main controls. And I'm pretty happy with that. That's going to be good. I don't know which is on and which is off. That's off. Okay, so now everything is wired up. I haven't connected these anything to the radio or to the Arduino yet. These are just the relays. They're all wired up, and I'll just check them. I've just turned this on. And the way to check them, this is just connected to the earth. Yep. Yep. That's all working completely fine. If I turn it off, everything's dead. Fantastic. That's great. Just thought I'd show you this. I have been putting these wires in, and these are the wires that are going to go to the pistons, and you've seen those before, and this is the one that goes to the piston, and these are obviously the ones that double back and go to the power. But I had to hold these in place, and I came across this really good idea. So I've got stacks of these old servo arms, and I just drilled them back, put a tap hole in there, cut this wire so that it fits around the screw, and screwed it down. That was easy. I thought it was going to be hard, but that's a nice solid mechanism that will keep any damage from here, because this is going to be plugged in and plugged out all the time. Okay, so my plan now is to bring it to the point that I can test out the pistons. In order to do that, I also have to put in the sockets for the sensors, and I have to wire that in. I have to put the TCA unit in, which is going to where all of the sensors go into. I'll have to put in the Arduino, and I'll have to get that operational and connected to the radio, and I'm going to keep working on doing that so that I can test it. The plan will be, once I've got this operational and it's all working and the pistons are moving up and down, I'll then just disconnect the ground so it won't work, and I'll get on with everything else. But step by step, you've got to take, it's like all things when you're scratch building, you have to take it to a step, stop, test, and then move on. Even though I've got all the wiring lined up. These little things are working really well, I've got to say. That's been terrific. All the wires are going down here, so all of the power is set up and the power out is all set up. Everything's ready as far as this is concerned. I just have to connect the leads in from the Arduino. Okay, so all of this is going quite nicely. I've put these little pieces of plastic in place. These are going to be the seat for the Arduino, and for the it is called the TCA, yeah, that will go there. These are now in place. I've screwed those once again using that nice little idea of the old servo tops, and I've got those. I've got one here sitting at the back also, and they will screw on very nicely. So I'm right at the position now of connecting all this up. O-ring is fits in there, and I was just going to glue this section onto the front part, this front section. That is clearly a mistake, because if I want to remove any of this, I have to, and get at anything, I'm going to have to break that seal and re-glue it. I didn't want to do that. I was a bit concerned about the fact that this was quite short. So I have now rebuilt this, and part of that, as you can see, I'm starting to work wires through here, and I'm going to glue them all in. This is the, just changing topic for a minute, this is the wires that are going to run out to all of the various servos and things. I worked out that there were 16 of them, and I'm bundling them all together. I'm going to push them through fairly carefully and then put a whole lot of epoxy in there, and it's going to seal. I'm also going to put the power out of this side, and I'm also going to put the bow thruster out of this side. You'll work all that out as you go along. But this notion is, I now can remove this around another O-ring. The other issue that drove all of this is that this stuff is hard to get, and I purchased this piece for the center piece here, and what I wanted was 100 millimeters by 30 millimeters thick, which I think is really quite strong. They sent me 2 millimeters thick here. Sorry, not 3 or 2. I can't remember, but this is really quite flimsy, and the notion was to glue that onto there. Thinking, no, I'm not going to do that. I do have a piece of 3 millimeter material here. It doesn't look pretty, but it's actually perfectly okay. I've used this in another boat. I don't need it anymore. It's got some marks on the outside, but the inside is as clean as a whistle. So this now is 3 millimeter thick on either side. It gives a lot more strength, and that will bolt onto, will screw onto here. So I've just made another one of these, which is a little bit longer, and now I'm fitting all of this on. So I'm just going to test it. I'm going to glue these wires in, and then I'm going to continue to work on wiring all of this up and getting it running. That's where we're at. Alright, so what I'm doing now, before I go any further, is I have put this together, which is a cheap servo, and little switch, and the notion is to test this. So when that's now in place, I can see the reading down here. Just going to turn this knob around, and that's made the connection. We're at that position there. And what this means now is that once I've connected this up, I also have a wire going to the Arduino, but this is completely independent, and every time I pull that knob around, these two wires will connect up, and I will have that one on the earth, and this one will go to the reset on the Arduino, and I will be able to I'll be able to reset the Arduino at will directly through this. That's going to just give me a lot of peace of mind, and it's going to be very useful as we go on. So I'm going to get that done now, turn it off, and this is going to go in under here. So I'm going to wire all of that in now, and that'll be great. Okay, I've taken a bit of time to fasten this underneath. I've had to make sure that the piston isn't going to hit it, and I've found the nicest little spot for it. It's all now running, and if I turn this knob this way, that's the reset. That's fantastic, and now I can go on to the next stage. And by continuing, I mean this lovely piece of thick wire. I'm going to line this up with the wires coming out of the motor room, and I'm going to keep the colours the same. And so I'm going to start with this first 3. That is, I think that's either the rudder or the hydroplane, not particularly sure, but I'm going to peel them all off, feed them back through, and start wiring them all up. Alright, so we are now almost at the place of having it all working. This is pretty exciting. I've had it all running, it all works, and now I've got some stages to go through, and I thought I'd explain them to you so that at least you see how I'm going to achieve this. I have this O-ring here, WTC for the motor room sets, and this is now all in place. And I haven't put the O-rings in any of these components here yet. But the process from now on is going to be, and I've already started this, each of these ends of the WTC components I've polished. I've just hand sanded them very gently to get them as smooth and as nicely finished as possible, so that I can push this together properly and then lock that in at this end. And I'm going to have to adjust my lock-in bolt at the end. But all of that now is looking really good. The next thing I'm going to do, once I've, now that it all fits and it's all in place, is to take the ends of these WTCs, and I'm very sensitive about not breaking these. And here's one as an example. I'm going to use this Acribond and put a little snail trail around the top of each of these, which is going to assist to glue these ends together and make. I just want to head off any possibility of cracks beginning in this stuff, because it's a pain if I have to replace it. The next step is I'm going to then set the piston stops properly using the Arduino and changing the code so that I get the full distance of the piston running. So then I've got this running perfectly. I'm also then going to set up a practice sweet spot for neutral buoyancy and click that into the memory of the Arduino. Then we're going to check the bow thruster. We're going to check the hydroplane on the sail and the self-leveling device to make sure that they're all working properly, just to make sure that they're in the right alignment, etc. Then I have to replace one of these boots because I did a pressure test and discovered one of those was leaking. Then I'm going to add the O-rings to all of these components in here. I won't put the O-rings on the pistons yet, but as I go I'm going to fit them very carefully, and some might require a little bit of padding under them, and some will fit perfectly, but I just want to get that really working nicely and put some grease into that and make all of those work well. Now all of these wires, as you can see, are far too long, and what I'm going to do next, once all of that is done, is take this out and put it here, as if this is, because when I put the boat together I'm going to have this sitting here, and then I'm going to shorten all of these wires so that it makes, so I don't need that much, I just need shorter wires all the way around so that they can, when I drop it back in, I can slip them in nicely. That's going to be a defining stage when all of these are reduced, and all of these little connections we're going to seal. And then the next step is going to be to add some foam to the hull. And I've decided already I'm going to put foam underneath all of this, the WTC. I'm going to use Glad Wrap, a few different methods of getting it in, and I'm going to seal the foam. I'm going to put seal. I'm going to put foam underneath the motor room. I'm going to put foam right up in the bow, which is going to assist with holding the bow thruster. And I think that will be enough. That's my thought at the moment. And this part of the hull here and this part of the hull here will hold the lead, which is going to hold the boat down. So on the weekend I'm going to be trying that out for the first time, and I'm hoping that the foam that I put in will be enough to keep the boat nicely buoyant so I can then begin to weigh it down. Then I'm going to seal the servo, which is up in the water, and to do that I'm going to be using some silicone and some grease. But that will be as safe as houses, I'm pretty sure. And after that, as I've just said, I'm going to take it to the pond. I'm going to have the pistons set to neutral buoyancy. In other words, as close to sinking as I would normally have it. I'm going to put it, I'm hoping it's going to float, and I'm going to be able to weigh it down with lead till it's at neutral buoyancy. The next thing that I'm going to do, hopefully at the same little session, oh, I should say too, prior to that we'll put the O-rings into the pistons. The next thing I want to do then is open the pistons out to their maximum length and put the boat on the surface of the water just to see how it sits. And I can use the controls to possibly adjust it and get it sitting perfectly, and then I'll turn it off, take it out, measure where those distances are, and put that detail into the Arduino, and the boat then is pretty close to being set up.